Thanks so much for joining us today on Feelin Good, sponsored by Warren County Community Services. I'm your host, Shelley Abrams, and certainly as you can tell today, we are not in the studio. We are at one of my very, very favorite places here at what used to be called the Course View Restaurant, and we will find out in just a couple minutes that there has been a rebranding of this particular location here in Mason, Ohio. But I'm happy to say today that two of my guests, Diana Nelson, to my immediate right, is the Vice Mayor of Mason, Ohio, and to her left is Kate Becker, who is the Director of, well, I'll get her official title, but she is the director of everything that goes on here at the Course View Restaurant and beyond. So I just thought that you as our audience would be interested in finding out more of the behind the scenes here in Mason, and I will tell you this. We are filming today on the day before the weekend of the opening of the Western and Southern Tennis Tournament. And there is so much excitement in the preparation that we are delighted that we were able to carve out a little time with our guests here for all of you today. So welcome. Diana and Kate, thank you so much for joining me today. One of the topics I wanted to start with was both of you introducing yourselves to our audience in terms of your journey to where you are today and your journey as a woman in a leadership role. I'm always very interested in finding out more about my guests. So Diana, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about where you started your journey and how you arrived here today.
Sure. Well, just to kind of go back a little bit, I was born in Wisconsin, and I went to college at the University of Texas at Dallas.
Okay.
And I got a bachelor's degree in science, accounting, and from there I worked for one of the big 6 accounting firms. Arthur Andersen at the time was one of the #1 accounting firms in the world, and had my daughter, and from there ended up going out on my own and starting my own practice, which became very successful. Got pregnant with my second daughter, and my husband said, I'm being transferred to Ohio.
Oh.
So picked up my one daughter at the time and moved over to Ohio. We really didn't know anyone in Ohio at all. And we moved here. I was able to keep my clients from Texas while I was here. Ended up having 2 more children along the way. And shortly after I had my third daughter, my husband passed away suddenly. So I had a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old now in a community with no family. And really very little friends because we didn't know many people. I was doing the mom thing and working, so we just had the family our family that we were with every day. So my first thought originally was we're going to need to move and go back home where we have family to help raise my children. And someone told me the best advice that I had gotten was you really should stay put for 1 year. Because of all the changes that just happened in your children's life, you really want to have a stable background for them while they're dealing with the death of their father. And so that's really where my journey began as becoming part of City Council. This community was so loving and so caring, and they just wrapped their arms around us and helped me raise my daughters. It really made me realize that we were going to be okay. So I raised my children here. They all went through the Mason school systems, which is a phenomenal school system, as you know. Mm-hmm. But as I was raised to give back to the community in which you were raised. And I believe that all of the love that this community gave to us and all of the help, it does take a village. It takes a community to raise children. I really felt like it was my duty to use my time and my talent to give back to the community that helped us and was so great to us for so many years. And so that's why, and that's how I got involved in Mason City Council. And then from there, it just kind of took off. I'm in my 8th year, and now I'm the vice mayor of Mason. And, you know, it's a community that has just given so much to so many people, and they're involved in so many things, and have such a great school system and great businesses that it's just been an easy leadership position.
Well, that's interesting that you would share that about your own life, because I recently just read, and I will take my magazine, the Center Point magazine, that we get every month, because I live here in Mason as well. And I was reading that Mason was chosen as the 4th best community to live in and raise families, according to a Forbes listing and so forth. And you mentioned that.
Yes, I mean, we're very blessed to live here. We are one of the best communities in the whole United States. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we were rated number 4, the 4th best place to raise a family. Mm-hmm. And there's so many factors that really went into that. We have one of the greatest school systems in the nation. We've received an excellent report card for Mason City Schools since the year 2000, and we continue to do so. We educate 11,000 students every year from the public standpoint. And we have 3 private schools, which are Mars Hills Academy, St. Susanna's, and Royalmont. We also have higher education, community college, which is Sinclair, which has great programs there. And of course, we're within driving distance from 2 major colleges as well, which is the University of Cincinnati and Miami University of Ohio. But aside from our great school system that we also have so many amenities within our community, both from the regional standpoint as well as the local standpoint. And I'm not sure if you want me to get into those now, or if you're going to kind of talk about those more in depth as we go.
Well, I think we will do that. And it is interesting because I had lived and I graduated from Miami, which is what brought me to Southwest Ohio. And then I started teaching and actually lived in Lebanon for 40 years. While my 3 sons were growing and graduated. And then I always had my eye on actually the greenery right near here, near the golf course, when I would play in this golf league. And I would say, I can picture myself living there some year, and when the time is right. And it worked out that that's where I live now. So, if you can see it, you can be it, I think. And envisioning that, I think, makes a big difference. And so with that being said, let's go to Kate. And Kate, tell us, how did you arrive here at this fabulous golf course, the restaurant, and just all the special events that go on here?
Okay, so, I am the president of Recreation Management Services and the general manager of the Grizzly Golf and Social Lodge, which was the rebranded name. I'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
And then we have the Course View became the Grade 18 Bar and Grill. Mm-hmm. So it's all housed in the facility at the Grizzly. And long story short, my first job was here 25 years ago. I was a busser in this restaurant.
Really?
And, when I was a kid, I got to come to the LPGA championships that were here. I worked at the Kroger Senior Classic when I was a busser in the restaurant. I spent summers here for probably 5 or 6 years, working seasonally. Then life took me on a crazy journey. I actually have an undergraduate degree in international studies, so science degree. I have a master's degree in art history, and that took me through various roles where I ran a commercial art gallery in Cincinnati for 7 or 8 years. I was the public art director for the city of Covington. And then my last job was I was the chief culture officer of a branding and design firm. So all of that being said, I had experience with economic development and how do you create sort of strategic plans and visions for amenities for municipalities, and when the opportunity arose to take over the helm of recreation management services, I opted to do so because that gave me the opportunity to come back here. And to clarify, RMS is the management company that is contracted by the City of Mason to run day-to-day operations here. So it has been a wild ride. It's been pretty incredible. I had a lot to learn, but I have an incredible staff who's here to be the professionals in each of the different departments, and have really sort of supported me in that journey of learning all things golf and recreation and running a restaurant.
Wow, that's an amazing story. That's kind of a full circle. I'm learning so many things about both of you I never had any idea about. So as we're talking about golf, maybe we could have Marianne Morris join us. Marianne, come on over and join with us. Draw up a chair. And I have known Marianne since I was vice president of the Chamber of Commerce in Middletown, starting in 1985. Well, you don't work with special events and golf outings in Middletown and not hear about Marianne Morris from the get-go. So I think one of the very first outings I ever worked in, as far as the chamber was concerned, Marianne was like one of the celebrities that played golf with everyone. Do you remember then? And then when I moved here to Mason, I was in the clubhouse and I was like, Marianne, you're here as well. I love it. So Marianne Morris, welcome. Share your story with us a little bit.
Well, I grew up in Middletown and graduated from Middletown High School. Played college golf at the University of South Carolina. My dream, like Kate, from coming over here and watching the ladies, the LPGA play, when I was 13, 14 years old. That's all I wanted to do. I drove my parents nuts. Take me to the golf course, and my dream became a reality. I got to spend about 20 years playing on the LPGA Tour with some of the best players in the world. Got to play with the men a couple times in the JCPenney Mixed Team Classic. And I had a good career. I loved what I did. But it was time for me to retire, and I was fine with that. And Andy Horn, who's the head pro here, he and I grew up together at Wildwood. And I called him and I said, hey, I'm looking for a part-time job. And he said, the only thing I have available right now is you can work in the cart barn. I said, perfect. Part-time, seasonal.
Right.
I spent 2 summers in the cart barn, and next thing you know, I'm his right-hand gal.
Oh, my.
So, but, it's been great here working with Kate, with the City of Mason. It's, and what Diana said, it truly is a family over here. I didn't grow up here, but I am friends with a lot of people that live in Mason now. I can joke around with them. They come in the pro shop, those little jib-jabs you do, and it's just a lot of fun to be here. I can't imagine being anyplace else. I hope I am healthy enough to do this till I'm about 80.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's so great that all three of you are here. I feel like this is an ideal group to ask this. How did playing sports, I'll start with Marianne, how did playing sports or any sort of extracurricular activity when you were in school, if you weren't in sports, you were in other clubs and so forth, how do you think that impacted your leadership skills? Or the reason I ask this is, I was always as active as you could be in sports before Title IX. I'm older than all of you, and Title IX had not been passed until 1973 is when I graduated from college. Well, I graduated in high school in 1969, so we did GAA, and we did some interscholastic competitions with our girls basketball team, but I would have loved to have played on a girls golf team or a tennis team Or, just I wanted to play on my brother's Little League team. And my dad said, Shell, you're good enough to play, but, girls just aren't allowed to play yet. And I find that now that they are allowed to play and they're excelling, I'm finding more and more successful women who are in leadership positions have played on teams. I mean, it's not a mandatory thing, but coincidentally, that may have helped them in terms of being part of a team at a young age and taking on, responsibilities and that kind of thing. So tell me, Marianne, what do you think?
I mean, I just think it gives you a lot of confidence. It gives you people skills. You have to learn how to deal with all different types of people. And my younger days, I mean, you can ask people that knew me. I was a hothead, especially on the golf course. And I would really get upset with myself. And I think playing and being around other people and learning how to deal with life. I'm much better at it now. I don't let things get me as upset as they used to. I enjoy every day, and I like giving back. Yesterday I was at a Browns Run Country Club volunteering as a rules official for Bishop Fenwick High School's Girls Invitational. And we have a great junior program here, and I hope I'm passing on to those kids good things. And that golf is important to me, but there's other things too. And years ago, there wasn't anything in my life but golf.
Okay.
Now I have friends that I see on a regular basis. I got my sense of humor back. But yeah, I just think, being on a team sport, you learn how to deal with life in general and different types of people.
Very good. Well, that's good to hear that you're still, that doesn't surprise me, that you are still being called by Middletown area schools and so forth to come, and you were part of the rules interpretation or the referees on the court.
Officials.
Okay.
So when you have tournaments like that, and I did the same thing for the Middletown City tournament, I volunteered for 3 days. It's not the most glamorous job in the world, but if somebody doesn't know what to do in a situation on the golf course, I would be the person and hopefully telling them the right thing with my decisions book that's about this thick. And,
Right.
But yeah, and it's fun. I mean, I love learning about the rules of golf, and I try to pass that on to the kids in the junior camp. I mean, I want every day that they come to camp, I want them to learn something. So if they go home and their mom and dad say, "Hey, what'd you learn today?" I learned this, or I learned this.
And they learn lifelong skills that they will use throughout their whole life in a variety of
There's
ways.
a lot of golf being played during business deals.
Yes. Right.
So,
Well, Kate, how about you? Were you involved with sports?
I played soccer when I was a kid, baseball, and then I switched to softball. And then I ran track for a couple of years.
Okay.
It's also in the drama club. So I think that sort of gave me my performative outward personality. But I think playing particularly on the soccer team, that you learn how to work with others, and you learn that you only are as good as much as you practiced, and so you have to put the effort into it. You have to, in order to excel, you have to be able to work with a team and put in the effort.
And not be necessarily competing against one another. You're there supporting each other when you're working on a team. So that goes across the board. Diana, how about you?
Well, I was a cheerleader, or I was a pom-pom, which so, and then
well, that is still a sport because
yes.
it's very well, and I say that because when I first started teaching, I was the director of the drill team, cheerleaders, and student council. Well, I had been a majorette, so I really didn't. I knew what it took to be a majorette, and I tried to transfer that then for the drill team and the cheerleaders, and that is very physical and very disciplined. So that counts as a sport to me.
Yes. I also did track and I was in band. But really, I've always gotten involved in any organization that I could that had anything to do with accounting or business. I've always joined organizations, and I find it interesting. I love to learn. So whatever information I can gather, I love to teach it. I love to learn it. And so that still rings true today because I'm involved in a number of organizations centered around my position here as the vice mayor. I just was awarded the vice chair for the National League of Cities Small Cities Council. And
very
so
good.
gathering information on how we can help improve our small cities throughout the country, and then turning around and distributing that information out to all the leaders within those communities. That is something that I love to do. I'm also the president of the Warren County Municipal League here, and I'm on the board of the Ohio Municipal League. So it's like I just keep getting involved in different things, and that's really, I think, where my leadership skills came from, is just being involved in all these different organizations and seeing what needs to be done, learning how to do it, working with others, which is critical, working with others. To get anything done. So it's been fun.
Well, and I will say that when I was working full-time, I did teach, but then I became vice president of the Middletown Chamber and then director of the leadership program. Then I helped Leadership Hamilton get started, Leadership Westchester, which is Leadership 21, get started, and then graduated from Leadership Ohio. So that was when I was working and actually getting paid for, being involved. Well, now I volunteer my time, which I love doing, and now I'm very involved with lifelong learning through Miami University and the VOA Learning Center, as well as main campus. But the VOA Learning Center in Westchester is kind of my main area. I work with the curriculum committee, and I'm the publicity person. So I always try to let people know, like you, all of you, that lifelong learning, which is usually age 55 and older, is so wonderful, because if you enjoy learning, and I will say I know so many people that teach in lifelong learning as well. So it can go on and on and on, no matter your age. It never stops. So, well, great. Well, let's take a little closer look at Mason and the rebranding. I was interested in knowing about the coordination between the City of Mason and then the outreach here to, here at the Grizzly and so forth. I know you two know each other. Well, you three all know each other. So tell me more about how that transpired.
I'll let you talk.
Okay. So the golf course was sold in 2007 to the City of Mason, and that was at the point at which Recreation Management Services began doing the day-to-day operations. So we have had a long-term contract, or a number of renewals since that time. But essentially, the city owns the entire facility, and which includes the Grizzly Golf Course, which is an 18-hole golf course that was originally designed by Jack Nicklaus, Desmond Muirhead, and Jay Moorish. And then there is a 4-hole player academy, which is our practice area, which was formerly the South 9. 4 holes of that left. And then we have the clubhouse, the driving range, that's sort of a shared agreement between us and the tennis facility, where we can use that throughout the year, not during the tennis tournament, as a driving range for the facility. And then we have Grade 18 Bar and Grill, which is a restaurant, catering operation, and they do all the concessions for the golf course. So really, the city supports by providing the capital investments, and we try to make the revenue model appropriate so that it is a great amenity for the city. But RMS provides sort of strategic insight into what the upcoming business plans should be for not only this year, but for years in the future as well, based on what's happening in the golf industry in particular.
Okay.
And then, the Grizzly turned 50 years old last year as part of that 50th anniversary. Because of my background in branding and design and communication, realizing that not only was our golden anniversary, it was a golden opportunity to tell a new story about the golf course. We've had many different names over the years. It was the Jack Nicklaus Golf Center. It was the Golf Center at Kings Island. It was the City of Mason Golf Center. And in order to kind of reposition it for the next 50 years, we did a lot of brand engagements to figure out what really had equity in the name, and it was the Grizzly, which is the name of the golf course specifically. So we rebranded as the Grizzly Golf and Social Lodge as part of that 50th anniversary celebration. The Golf and Social Lodge piece of it speaks to not only are we a golf club, but then one of the big insights around why people continually come back here is the socializing that happens on this patio and the connections that they have with the community. And it was something that we really felt needed to be positioned within the name of the facility. So that's how we landed on that. And then the Grade 18 Bar and Grill, actually, so the Grade 18 comes from, you play 18 holes in a round of golf. The 18th hole here, at one point in time, was one of the best closing holes in the country, or considered one of the best closing holes in the country. And it's a nod to Jack Nicklaus winning 18 majors.
Oh,
so that's
okay.
where the Grade 18 Golden Grill comes from.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Interesting. Well, in terms of the golf course being located here and with all the amenities, we also have the tennis center, which, like I said, is like underway now, and there's so much energy going on over there. Equally here at the golf course today, what did you say? There's a couple tournaments that have been going on this week and this weekend, next weekend. I mean, golf does not stop just because tennis is happening. But tell us whatever you will about the whole concept of the tennis center being here in Mason, because I always reiterate to people, when you hear it's the Cincinnati Western and Southern Tournament, Cincinnati is really here in Mason. I say that all the time. So tell us a little bit about the whole tennis presence here in Mason, if you would.
Well, the Western Southern came to Cincinnati in, I believe it's 1899. So they've been around for 124 years. And 44 of those years have been here in Mason. It is quite an asset to have such an international event going on here in Mason. We really see an influx of individuals come. It helps our hotels, it helps our restaurants, it helps our bars. And this has just been the home for the Western Southern ATP for all those years. We are passionate about trying to find a way to keep them here. We have engaged the governor in this, as well, state officials. We have Adam Matthews, Senator Steve Wilson, of course, Mason City Council, to put together a package to keep them here. And we are very hopeful. We also have, let me see, I just learned today, 2,600 volunteers for parking alone, as well as approximately 1,500 other volunteers. So you do have dedication within the Cincinnati region of people coming in to help make the Western Southern be as successful as it has been.
Well, I have to say, to piggyback on that, we were talking about the tournament, and I started coming here in like the mid 90s as just a fan. And then I found out that there were all these opportunities for volunteering, and so I I will be volunteering for about my 20th year, starting next week, as an usher, and I usually pick out the grandstand. So if you're coming to the tennis tournament, come over to the grandstand and look for me. I'll be there Monday through Friday during the day. And so it's just been the greatest opportunity to, even though as a volunteer and as an usher, we are not allowed to get pictures, autographs, not really interact with the players. However, we have had players tell us that we are the friendliest tournament of all the tournaments that they play in. And so I think that speaks so well of this area. I said, well, it's just that Midwestern, hospitality. We love having you here and so forth. So, and then back to golf again. I have to tell Marianne this. During the senior tournament, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was when Lee Trevino and Jack and Arnold Palmer were all here. Well, we got rained out in the session. My parents were here, and I was volunteering for ESPN, and I was up on one of the greens as a spotter on the green. And the rains came, so they suspended play for the day. And literally, I'm telling you, I walked through by myself. I was walking to meet my parents. I walked through the parking lot that's right here. And that happened to be where some of the players' cars were. So I happened to glance, and I saw this golfer sitting on the back bumper of his car, changing his shoes, just like we all do. And I said, okay, don't pass up this chance. This will never happen again. And it was Arnold Palmer. And I went over to him, and I had my hat, which I almost brought today. I said, I really hate to be a groupie, but would you mind signing this hat for my dad? My dad would, because my dad thought the world of Arnold Palmer, as we all did. He was so kind, and he was like, oh, sure, I will, and he signed it. And it's still my dad. That was like a treasured gift that I gave to my dad. And then that is now with me, now that my mom and dad have passed away. But I hang on to that. And I think of Arnold Palmer. Every time I'm out in that parking lot, I think of just happenstance. And he had no group of people around him. It was just like any other person. He was changing his shoes, and I just walked up to him. Marianne, I'm sure you have a million stories. Tell us a couple.
Well, probably one of my favorite things, the one year at the U.S. Women's Open, played at Pine Needles in Pinehurst. The Peggy Kirk Bell family, they owned it. And I actually got to do a clinic with Kathy Whitworth and Peggy Kirk Bell. And I mean, she was Ma Bell. That's what you called her. But just, to be around those two and to get to interact with them. I got to play a lot with Nancy Lopez, Meg Mallon. It still sometimes isn't real to me that I got to spend 20-some years playing with these people, and how nice they were, and I never did get used to people asking me for my autograph, because I never thought of myself in that sense. I'm just plain old Marianne, and, but, I never turned anybody down. I mean, if they wanted my signature, they could have it. But, and just interacting with the kids and the fans. And we were playing a tournament in Orlando, and they had brought a handicapped child. And I got done playing, and I went to walk by, and I saw him, and I took my hat off, and I put it on his head. And his mom pulled my mom to the side and said she's the first player that's interacted with him.
Oh, that is so great.
And I don't know why I'm so upset. But
that does not surprise me about you, Marianne. You would do
I
that.
can't walk past this kid and not talk to him.
Sure.
And I'm like,
Sure.
I'd take my hat off now if my hair looks terrible. It did then, but I'm like, this kid's out here, he's watching us play, he's going home with something.
Right, right.
So that's what I do.
Very good. Oh, how touching.
Sorry.
That is no. Oh no. It's very touching, and the fact that you would spend that time, and you can see how people remember those. I mean, I'm sure they retell that story over and over again, and that.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I think, coming into this role, at one point in time, also the tennis center and the golf course were owned by the same parent company. And, we have this incredible history here between the two facilities of bringing, elite players from around the world to Mason. And in our archives in the basement, we have documentation of that history, and it's really incredible. And so as part of the 50th, we started digitizing some of these old archival slides and things like that. And all of the players that Marianne is talking about during the LPGA championships, we have photographs of. So Kathy Whitworth and Nancy Lopez, who lived on 18.
Yes.
But also from the tennis tournament. So Andre Agassi, one of the stories when I was a kid, it was when Andre Agassi played over at the ATP, and he was dating Brooke Shields.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we weren't allowed to say anything to anyone, and we weren't supposed to make any fanfare. Well, I was starstruck, and she was so beautiful, and I stopped and I hid in the pro shop behind a rack of clothing, and was like, oh. Well, I remember telling Andy that story, and Andy was like, oh my God, she put her purse in my office, and so it's like all these moments that were kind of threads of our history, right? That we all have incredible memories of this place,
Right.
And I think it speaks volumes to not only the type of caliber of event that we're capable of hosting here in Mason, but historically we have the chops to back up that statement. And I think one of the things about the future is that the City of Mason are willing to make those investments to keep those types of events and amenities here, because it's so valuable not only to Mason but to Warren County and to the businesses and the residents and the community at large.
Right.
So, I appreciate your story.
Yes, yes.
And
we just hosted the Ladies National Golf Association
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago, and I'd always played in these tournaments, and I'd show up, everything is set up, everything is ready to go. It was fun actually being on the other end of it and watching her work her magic as far as marketing and all that to help that event. But it was great to see the other side of tournament operations.
Right.
So, like you said, just always learning something.
it was kind of trial by fire. It was my first tournament being involved in, but
it went great.
It did. It went great. We made it on the Golf Channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did, and we had players from all over the world.
How many players?
It was a smaller field than we had hoped. I think 41. But the Ohio Women's Amateur was the exact same dates at Scioto Country Club up in Columbus. So most of the Ohio players went and played in that tournament. And so our field ended up being mostly people not from Ohio, but incredible, talent from all over the United States. But then from beyond that, we had a player from Paraguay, one from Australia, one from Canada. So the draw was there, and they played.
It was fun
good
to
golf.
watch them play.
Yeah.
And you'll be planning to stage it next year as well?
Probably not next year.
Okay.
They're thinking about potentially bringing back their women's mid-am a couple years from now, but there are some future capital projects with regard to course improvements that are sort of on the docket.
Okay.
So we probably would not be doing something while we're under construction.
Well, if you ever, I can't pass up this chance to say, if you ever get a chance to have like the Legends group and the senior men's, get those women that I remember from the LPGA days and the senior men together here. Could that ever happen? We were down at the World Golf Hall of Fame once, and I think, how many times am I going to get the chance to say this? So I walk up to one of the directors and I said, so do you remember when you were in Mason, Ohio? And, da-da-da. And he goes, oh, yeah, we loved that tournament. We loved being there. And I said, so would you consider coming back again now with like the legends of women's golfers and the seniors? And he goes, that's interesting. He said, we would need to have some sponsors. So right away I was like brainstorming, okay, well, now we need to go out and get like the top 5 corporations here in Cincinnati to say that they will sponsor it and so forth. So anyway, I had to mention it because I would love to see that happen. But anyway, Diane, comments from the city's perspective on special events such as we're seeing here. You see how much it adds to the community, right?
Yes, I have been a huge supporter of the golf course since day one. It's not only the social amenity here that we have, but it really helps with our economic development because it allows for us to utilize the golf center as one of our selling points to get some of the companies to come into Mason. So there's things that you really just don't see that are underlying of the perks and the benefits of having this golf course here. And so I've always have been a supporter, and I will continue to support the golf course.
Very good. Well, I love living adjacent to the golf course. So I live on hole number 4, which is a par 5. And I just love looking out the window and seeing the golf course every morning and thinking, am I really living here? I mean, because I always think this has to be what heaven is like. It's like a golf course in the morning, so quiet with the sun just dappling, on the greens and so forth. But it's such a serene, a serene area. And yet the music, there's music here every weekend, yes? And there's activity, and like you said, when you come here, it's kind of like Cheers. You see a lot of people that but then you see new people. You see because we tell everybody about this location, and you would think everybody would know of it. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I haven't been there for a while. I said, well, what's holding you back? I mean, you should come and see. So, but the last few times we've been here, we've had to make reservations. So clearly word has traveled,
good.
Right?
That's good.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, I know in closing, I could go on and chit-chat forever, but Diane, are there other things that you're looking at in the future? I know we were at a meeting last night about downtown revitalization, which is very exciting. Do you want to mention anything about that?
So the downtown, as you know, for years, like the last 20 years, they've been trying to revitalize it and develop it, and it's just kind of failed time and time again. And this new council and this new downtown committee group said, you know what, it's time to take it out of the hands of the politicians and put it into the hands of the Community Development Corporation. Because every time you have a turnover in politics, you have different ideas, and anything that someone's been working on kind of it fails or it dies. And so this gets politics completely out of it and puts it in this development corporation. They have been doing a phenomenal job. The key really to getting started is to involve the community and everyone around the downtown Mason area, the businesses, the individuals. And the CDC has made a point to really contact everyone throughout the past couple months, and they've gathered over 2,000 responses from individuals and businesses on what everybody sees downtown Mason to look like from a revitalization standpoint. And so they've really, I believe that phase 1 of this is kind of coming to an end, and now phase 2 is going to be, I believe, the beginning of getting together a master plan for our revitalization downtown. And I'm super excited to see what the future holds for our downtown. I think the public wants it, and we're ready for it. To see, bringing more shops and more boutiques, more living in the downtown Mason to keep it walkable. So it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds, but I have every faith in the Community Development Corporation that they're going to do a phenomenal job.
Well, we were at the meeting last night and we were talking about what makes Mason unique among other communities in the area, many things, but something that actually springs from my experience with Midfest International in Middletown. And Marianne knows about how successful that event was for 30 some years, to feature a different international country that did business with the companies in Middletown, and then they would feature the artists, the food, and just, it would fill the entire downtown plaza area, and usually there were at least 100,000 people that came during the weekend. So last night at the event, at the close of the event, we brought up the fact about how what an international feel Mason has because of an event that the schools have every year. It's called Taste of Mason, and we go every year. And it's like Midfest, only inside Mason High School for one night. And they bring, all the different dance groups and the student musical groups and so on from all the different countries. And there are, at least 60 or 70 languages, I think, spoken at Mason High School, I think. And so it's very, very international, and I think that could be woven into the revitalization as well, because then you would get, people would say, well, where can we go for, Brazilian food? Where can we go for, your golfers are like, oh my gosh, you mean we come here and we can go for food from Peru or, different countries. So, I just think that the future of Mason is kind of unlimited, don't you think?
I do, and you mentioned a very good point. We have students that their families come from 70 different countries with 52 different languages being spoken. 52, okay. And then we also have a wonderful portfolio of businesses within Mason that are located in 6 different countries. So we have a very diverse background here in Mason, and it's great to be able to showcase it and to embrace it, and it's unique within the Cincinnati region.
Yes, it is. It makes the whole county very attractive, I think, for the CVB Convention and Visitors Bureau bringing in events for the whole county and so forth. So, anybody like to promote anything that's coming up in the next couple months that you would like to mention?
We'll be on the look for announcements for maybe future Swing and Sips. That is a new program that we started that is about welcoming women to the game of golf. So it's a no pressure, fun environment. It's about socializing, but you get to play 4 holes on the academy, on-course instruction by Marianne. You get 2 beverage tickets, an appetizer ticket, and then you come here and you socialize on the patio afterwards.
Great.
It was a big success. We've done it, we were supposed to do it 5 times this summer. We got rained out last month. But it has brought a lot of new players to the course. It's created connections amongst women who might not have met each other before. But I think, speaking to the diversity that you were talking about, we are trying to create a welcoming and inclusive environment here where players of all abilities and all ages are welcome to play the game of golf. And I think there's a lot of barriers to entry there for why you might not go and hit some balls on the driving range or go and try to even learn how to play. And I think that the demographics of golf are changing significantly, and we have to position ourselves to be able to attract those audiences in the future. And that means being welcoming to all. So it's a great story. It aligns very nicely with this.
Very good. And the last story I wanted you two to share. You mentioned to me that you were playing in a golf outing recently. Mention that. Yes.
So it's one of our annual outings and events that happen here. I have tried to stack my team each year, and I always invite Marianne and my brother-in-law Troy to play because they're obviously both great golfers. And you know, I only started playing golf 2.5 years ago when I came on board here, and you know, I've sort of learned to whack my way around a golf course, and I wouldn't say I've gotten a little better, but it's never felt very comfortable. And as we were playing on Saturday, I was wondering if maybe I was a left-handed golfer. I'm left-eye dominant. I shoot a rifle left-handed. I was a switch hitter when I played baseball and softball. And so my stepson, who's also playing our foursome, is a lefty. So I snuck out while we were waiting on a tee box and started swinging that club. Couldn't figure out my hands, and we were kind of like, "What are you doing?" And I guess my swing looked better, and I was more balanced. And so she goes, "Go up here and hit at the tee box." And I ended up playing the last 5 holes on the course left-handed, and it's taking a little tweaking, but it was a big surprise that I think I'm actually a lefty, so I need to buy a new set of clubs.
There you go. There you go. I love it. I love it. You don't hear that happening very often, like right in plain sight, right? I mean, you know, but there was.
It looks so much better when you just switch to the other side. I'm like, this is nuts, but it's working. So
Well,
teed off on 18 and hit about 150 yards straight down the middle of the fairway. You never hit a drive that far at your other clubs.
there you go.
I
Well,
can attest to that.
Well, and we were talking because we both played softball when we were in school, and I can remember Dale helping me at Browns Run, and he'd say, "Now, Shell, you played softball, didn't you? I can tell by the way you're swinging," because I was swinging like I would bat. And he said, "Think about turning in the barrel more, turn in the barrel." So, Dale, I still remember that, and I still think of you when I try to turn in the barrel, and I think my game has improved, but I think I need to tweak it a little more with Marianne. So on that note, we hope that all of our audience enjoyed our conversation today about everything from leadership to playing golf left-handed. I mean, you know, it was kind of the whole gamut. But these ladies, I think, prove for sure that we have some very talented leaders who are ladies here in Warren County. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we hope that you're feeling good. Bye for now.